Welcome back to the workshop. It's Tim for Tim Krause Electronics, and we're working on the Foxer amplifier again. I have to apologize for some background noise since I still don't have a door on this room. That's just something I'm going to have to deal with for now. I think it'll quiet down quite a bit once I put the door up, but I noticed in the last video you could hear the water heater in the background, and it's on right now, so you can probably hear it again. That's not white noise from the camera, that's just the water heater. Anyway, I did some work off camera. I did all the wiring on the circuit board. It's a very slow and tedious process, especially because this is the first time that I'm building this circuit, and I don't trust my notes and my layout drawing that I did enough to just, accept that everything is correct and start wiring everything that I see drawn on there. So I had to verify every single wire, and I did find a couple of mistakes, so it's a good thing that I did that. So one mistake that I made last time, these two resistors were actually tied in down here, so I had that upside down. When I was drawing the layout for this, I was thinking in terms of top down instead of bottom up, so everything's backwards. So I have to just kind of keep that straight in my mind, and I don't always do a very good job of that. So these three ground wires here going through the top of the board are for they're separate grounds for the power amp, phase inverter, and preamp. So the preamp ground wire goes across here, and then it comes back up to the top of the board, and it's soldered onto this turret right here. Same for the phase inverter. This one goes down through the board, comes over here, and then comes back up, and it's soldered to that turret. And then the ground for the power amplifier goes under the board and comes out right here, and it's soldered to this turret. Oh shoot, I shouldn't have soldered that yet. Wasn't paying attention. Cathode resistor for our cathode follower needs to go into that same spot. So. And then we've got our two mica caps for the two switchable treble cap values. And depending on where on what switch position it's on, these two capacitors, it's either going to be just this one alone or both of them in parallel. These are our two slope resistors. So you'll either have one 100K slope resistor by itself or two 100Ks in parallel. Oh, because I'm going to the wrong spot. I don't typically build amplifiers using all half-watt resistors like this, so I hadn't anticipated just how tight a fit it is when you try to put 4 of these leads into one turret. Quarter-watt leads on resistors obviously are a little bit thinner, So that's never been an issue before. But in this case, I was just barely able to get... Oh, come on. I was just barely able to get 4 leads into these turrets. And I've got one spot right here, and another one right here. So 2 places in the phase inverter that have 4 leads going into a turret. Now, I'm not sure if you can see it, but the phase inverter here has, here's our 47K tail resistor, and I've also got a 47K bias resistor. Well, the reason for that is that I'm going to have an extra switch on the back panel of the amplifier that switches in additional resistors in parallel with that. So it's going to act as a kind of a 4-way master volume switch. I may end up changing that out for a 12-position rotary switch, but the one that I have in stock right now is a 4-position. And basically, all it does is it's as you increase the value of this bias resistor, which is typically, you know, something like 470 ohms. You might see one as high as, I don't know, 1K in some cases, but they're usually not real high. As you start increasing that value, it starts to limit the current available from the phase inverter. And so what you end up with is an in-phase inverter master volume. The effect of this is very similar to a post-phase inverter master volume, but the benefit here is that you don't have to have a perfectly balanced dual pot for the master volume. So 47K is the highest value that bias resistor will ever be. That'll be for the maximum attenuation. And then as I switch in other resistors in parallel with it, you know, it'll drop it down to, I don't know, something like maybe 22K, somewhere around there, and then maybe a 5 or 6K, and then wide open will be 470 ohms. You might have also noticed that I ended up using some carbon comp resistors in here. The phase inverter has carbon comp resistors because that's the one area where you know, you could actually get some benefit, some sonic benefits from those resistors, and it's far enough downstream that any noise they generate won't be an issue. Having a hard time seeing what I'm doing. Normally I'd move my head so that I could see what my fingers are doing, but then I'd be blocking the camera. My daughter's got a friend over, so I guess you all get to listen to her playing. And hopefully once I've got the... I didn't have to deal with this back in Oregon, because the workshop was out in an outbuilding. Only time I had any noise to worry about then was if somebody was opening one of the overhead doors. But here, it's a different story. Okay, so on this cathode resistor for the power tubes, one of the things that I see a lot, especially like in 5E3 builds, I don't know why it seems to be more common with those. But people will put the resistor right up against the cathode bypass capacitor, and these are going to build up a lot of heat. So that's going to age that capacitor much more quickly. So I just bent the leads out a little bit, just gives it a little extra distance so that this capacitor doesn't quite get so hot. So I don't want to have to replace this in 10 years because it's been baking next to that resistor. Actually, a lot of these are going to need to touch up. As like I said in the last video, these things drink up so much solder that even though you've got a really solid connection here, a lot of times when you're done, it looks like you missed a spot. And for an eye candy build like this, I don't want to have that. Even though it's unnecessary in terms of the electrical connection and mechanical integrity, I'd rather just put a little extra solder in there so that it looks nice. And I'm sure whoever owns this amp after me will appreciate it. So that's all of the components on the main circuit board here. Let's see if I can get a good close-up here. Hey, the signature's upside down. How about we do it this way? That looks pretty nice. Okay. So next up is our power supply board. I got a bunch of these spade connectors. I think what I'm going to do is just do a real quick tack on the top, and then I'll flip the board over to finish the soldering. So I don't really have any other way of keeping them from falling out. Come on. There we go. Let's try it this way. And a couple of those are crooked. See if I can do this without burning my thumb. Ooh, that's hot. I mentioned that I wanted to make sure that this amp was easily serviceable. That's the reason that I've got all of these spade connectors on here. When this is done, you will be able to completely remove the power supply board. So if you need to replace one or all of the electrolytic capacitors, you're not going to have to undo any solder connections. You just pull the spade connectors off, and then this is screwed into the chassis. You unscrew it, and there you go. Whew. Dang, that gets hot. Wish I had something to hold this with. I guess I can try this, but my hands are shaky enough as it is. Okay, that looks pretty good. And I've also labeled everything pretty well so that anybody who's working on this and doesn't have access to a schematic, they'll be able to tell what's what. So plate, choke, screen, and then Y and G for the yellow and green wires. Same thing on the ground side. Green, yellow, red. Let's see. I should probably do all the resistors first. All I'm doing here is just tacking these leads just a tiny bit, just to give me a chance to flip it over without them falling back out. I'll reflow that, get them nice and straight, and then I can do the second lead and add a little solder to the first lead. And once again, just tacking these a bit. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay. Something very satisfying about the symmetry of this board. I don't know why I didn't want to focus before, but there it is. Alright, so the last circuit board we have to do is this one. It's got the MOVs on it and the thermistor. And when I was designing this circuit board, I got the sizes of these backwards. So you'll notice as I put these MOVs in here, the ones that are marked as larger on the board are actually the smaller ones. Oh well. So if you watched that video that I did where I repaired my friend's Bassman amplifier and gave it some upgrades, this is the exact same setup that I did in that amplifier, just using terminal strips in that case. on. There we go. Let's see how we did here. No, those stayed pretty straight. So you might be wondering, why am I using a thermistor for inrush current protection if this has got a tube rectifier? Well, the tube rectifier is going to give you a soft start for the high voltage winding, but it's not going to give you a soft start for the filament winding. So having a thermistor on the primary of the power transformer is going to give you inrush current protection for the entire amplifier. So this is going to make it easier on our tube filaments, because those wear out just like light bulbs too. Okay, I am changing camera angles here just to break it up a little bit. Some little variety. Okay. Don't need to get to anything on the bottom of these circuit boards anymore, so I can go ahead and install all three of them. Oh, I need 2, 4, 6. Do I have enough screws? I don't. Okay, well, I need to order myself some more of these black screws. I have other screws, but I really like the way these look. What did I do? Is that upside down? Nope, that's not. This is upside down. No, it's not. How did I end up being offset like that? Oh, this is upside down. Okay. So next thing we can do, I suppose, is start wiring up these tube sockets. I've got to put a couple of small terminal strips on V1 and V2. And then I guess this weekend I'll do the screen printing on the faceplates, and then we can start wiring up the controls. I was concerned about these standoffs stripping out since the thread doesn't go all the way to the end. There's very little of the thread actually biting into the aluminum sheet here, and it's not a super heavy gauge, so I was a little worried about that, and it turns out I was right to be concerned, because one of these, as I was tightening the screw on the circuit board, it ended up stripping out the standoffs. So I've put a nut on the back of each one and a drop of thread locker, so that solves that issue. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I ran into a bit of a snag. The tube sockets that I had for the preamp tubes, they're ceramic, porcelain, whatever you want to call it. Seem to be good quality. They probably are good quality, but they're not going to work for this build. They've got an extra pin, a center shield pin, that normally I would just, I'd clip off the little solder lug and be done with it. But in this case, I don't want something in there that's going to look sloppy. So I pulled out that center pin, and turns out that's the only thing keeping those sockets together. So as soon as I pulled that out, the bottom half came right off and all the pins fell out, and so those are not going to work. So I had to order some new sockets, new preamp tube sockets. While I'm at it, might as well order a few other things. So I got the 12-way rotary switch, so I am going to change that master volume to a 12 position, which I should have just done that from the beginning. I really would like to have finer control than just 4 positions. So that's going to be switched over. And what else did I do? Oh, okay. So Originally I was gonna have a brilliance control, and I know I've talked about this before, but it really is. It's worth mentioning again. It is the most useful tone control I've ever put in amplifiers, and basically all it is on your volume control you've got your bright cap, and instead of either switching the bright cap in, which sometimes is going to make it too bright, or switching it out, which sometimes makes it too dark, you gradually bleed it in behind a 1 meg reverse audio taper pot. Try it sometime, you'll love it. I've had builds where that was the only tone control I ever used, just because it gives you so much flexibility. So I was going to do that, but I'm limited on front panel space in this amplifier, and I really wanted to have the master on the front rather than on the back panel. So I'm just going to go with a two-way bright cap switch. So, you know, the small cap, none, large cap. That'll give me a little bit of flexibility, not as much as a brilliance control would, but it's better than nothing, and it'll allow me to use that extra space on the front panel for the master volume control. Looking back, I wish that I had purchased a chassis that was just a couple of inches longer, but I was basically chasing after a nice compact form factor, so I got what I got. And in the future I'll definitely go with a bigger chassis than what I'm working with. I got plenty of room inside, it's just that front panel space is not quite enough. And I really don't want to just squish everything together. I mean, it's too late for that in this case anyway, but regardless. So those are, everything's ordered. It's going to be, you know, sometime next week before I get those. So that's all I'm going to do for today. But I'm supposed to have the emulsion for the screen printing tomorrow. So the plan is sometime this weekend I'll do a video where I'll do the screen printing on the front and rear panels, those plexiglass pieces that I've got, and then I can start mounting the pots and jacks and things like that. So thank you for watching. Like it if you like it, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.